Every 15 minutes, somewhere in Japan, a company closes its doors forever. This is not about a financial crisis, a lack of customers, or even imminent bankruptcy. Many of these companies are healthy, profitable, with decades of history, yet they vanish in silence. What is happening to the backbone of one of the world's largest economic powers? According to Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, in 2021 alone, more than 42,000 companies shut down operations despite being in the black. And the projection is even more alarming. By 2025, nearly 630,000 businesses may be at risk of closure. This is an unprecedented phenomenon. It is not the global economy killing these companies, but a structural, silent, almost invisible factor. These small and medium-sized enterprises represent 99.7% of all businesses in the country and employ more than 70% of the workforce, according to data from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They are family-owned factories, workshops, restaurants, and local shops that sustain the daily lives of millions of Japanese citizens. If even they are at risk, what does that mean for the future of Japan's economy? Part of the answer lies in demographics. Japan today has one of the lowest fertility rates in the world, 1.26 children per woman, far below the replacement rate of 2.1, according to the National Institute of Population and Social Security Research. By the end of this century, the population could shrink by half. But while worrying, this statistic alone does not explain why profitable companies are disappearing. The enigma goes beyond numbers and charts. It is about succession, culture, and a deep generational divide. Owners are aging, successors are nowhere to be found, and a younger generation drawn to big cities and new markets refuses to carry the weight of inheriting family businesses. The result is a ticking time bomb that threatens not only jobs, but Japan's very economic identity. If the issue is neither money nor customers, what is truly behind this silent collapse? The answer may shake everything you thought you knew about the strength of the Japanese model, the paradox of prosperity. In Japan, a company shutting down does not necessarily mean bankruptcy. In 2021, more than 42,000 businesses closed despite reporting profits, according to the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. And projections are far worse. By 2025, more than 630,000 companies could disappear, an official figure that exposes the fragility of a system long viewed as stable. The paradox becomes clear when we look at the age of business owners. The same ministry reports that more than 60% of Japanese entrepreneurs are already over 60 years old. These are men and women who built their businesses during the post-war boom, when Japan rose to become the world's second-largest economy. Now, as they approach retirement, nearly half of them have no successor. The consequences go far beyond statistics. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development reminds us that small and medium-sized enterprises represent 99.7% of all Japanese businesses and employ more than 70% of the workforce. In other words, this is not about isolated cases. It is the very backbone of the nation's economy. To understand the impact, imagine a neighborhood bakery. For 40 years, it has supplied families, become a community gathering place, and sustained local jobs. The owner still has loyal customers, but the children chose careers in Tokyo or Osaka. They do not want to wake up at 4 a.m. to knead bread. When that bakery closes, the neighborhood loses more than a supplier. It loses part of its identity. At a national scale, the consequences are devastating. The government itself estimates that by 2030, 1.2 million small businesses may close down, taking with them 6.5 million jobs and removing $150 billion from Japan's GDP. For a country already struggling with economic stagnation and deflation, as highlighted in the annual reports of the Bank of Japan, such a loss could be irreversible. The question becomes unavoidable. If profitable companies are shutting down due to a lack of successors, how can Japan preserve its economic and social fabric? And even more importantly, could other aging nations be heading toward the same fate? The weight of tradition. For decades, business succession in Japan followed a simple rule. Ownership passed from father to eldest son. In the 1980s, more than 90% of small and medium-sized enterprises were transferred within the family, according to records from the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. This model sustained generations of companies we now recognize worldwide. Nintendo, Panasonic, Suzuki, all began as family businesses. But that tradition is now unraveling before our eyes. Today, less than 30% of Japanese businesses remain within the family, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Why? Because the younger generation has grown distant from the idea of inheriting factories, workshops, or restaurants. Urbanization plays a central role. Young people leave small towns and villages for opportunities in Tokyo, Osaka, or Yokohama. There, they find jobs in technology, digital marketing, or creative industries that promise mobility, flexibility, and a chance to travel. Returning to a town of 5,000 residents to take over an auto parts shop or a gear factory no longer fits the imagination of a generation raised in a globally connected world. And here lies the contradiction. While local businesses offer stability, they also demand sacrifice. Working 6 days a week, with no long holidays and under heavy community expectations, does not appeal to a youth that values autonomy. As highlighted in a 2023 report from the Japan Institute for Labor Policy and Training, the new generation prioritizes quality of life over job security, something unthinkable for the post-war founders. The cultural rupture is stark. For parents, taking over the family business was an act of honor and duty. For their children, it may feel like a prison. This clash of values is creating a vacuum that threatens millions of companies. And an unsettling question arises. Are we witnessing the end of a model built on family continuity? If tradition no longer sustains the backbone of Japanese enterprises, what could take its place? The answer leads us to an even more delicate point. For many founders, shutting down the business is preferable to placing it in the wrong hands. But what does wrong truly mean in this context? Honor above survival. In Japan, many business owners would rather close a profitable company than hand it over to someone they deem unworthy. From a purely economic standpoint, this behavior may seem irrational, but within Japanese culture it makes sense. To understand it, we must look at history. During the samurai era, there was more honor in committing seppuku, the ritual of opening one's own stomach with a sword, than in surrendering to the enemy. This logic of preserving dignity at any cost left deep cultural marks, and it continues to shape how business leaders view their companies today. A survey by Teikoku Databank published in 2023 revealed that nearly 30% of small and medium-sized business owners said they would rather shut down operations than accept successors who could not guarantee the same standards of quality and reputation. These are businesses built on decades of perfectionism. Family-run restaurants passing down secret recipes, artisan factories producing musical instruments, or workshops specializing in rare handcrafted techniques. For these owners, transferring leadership without certainty of excellence would dishonor their very name. This dilemma creates daily micro-conflicts. On one side, there is pressure from local communities, which see a company's closure as a collective loss. On the other side, there is the founder's conviction that handing management to someone lacking the same discipline or passion would be an unforgivable mistake. And it is not just pride at stake. Reputations built over 40 years can collapse in mere months if the successor fails to meet expectations. This attachment to perfection, combined with resistance to change, turns succession into not just a financial issue, but an emotional one. Public policies struggle to break through this cultural barrier. Support programs launched in 2017 by the Ministry of Economy, including subsidies for legal costs and tax breaks for business transfers, clash with this wall of tradition. Money alone is not enough. What is truly at stake is trust, honor, and identity. And this raises an inevitable question. To what extent does preserving tradition justify sacrificing the future? Could the obsession with perfection actually accelerate the collapse everyone fears? To answer, we need to examine the government's and private sector's attempts to reverse this crisis. But are technology and tax incentives enough to tackle a problem so deeply rooted in Japan's cultural soul? Solutions? Under scrutiny. Facing an imminent risk, the Japanese government attempted to act. In 2017, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry launched a national succession support program. The package included subsidies to cover legal fees, tax breaks for inheritances and business transfers, and incentives for local platforms that could match retiring business owners with potential successors. On paper, it seemed like a promising solution. In practice, the results were modest. Reports from the ministry itself show that most small business owners were not even aware of these benefits, while others considered the process too bureaucratic to pursue. It was in this vacuum that private solutions emerged, reshaping the sector. The most emblematic case is the M&A Research Institute, founded in 2018 by Shinsaku Sagami. The company revolutionized the succession process by using artificial intelligence to connect owners nearing retirement with qualified buyers or managers. What once took years was reduced to an average of 49 days, according to the company's own reports. The success was so overwhelming that the firm went public in 2021, turning Sagami into Japan's youngest billionaire at just 32 years old. But here lies the deeper reflection. If a single company managed to thrive so much by solving just a fraction of the problem, doesn't that also reveal the true scale of the crisis? The pent-up demand is enormous, and yet thousands of business owners remain reluctant. Research by the Tokyo Foundation for Policy Research in 2022 shows that many owners reject external successors for fear of losing their brand's identity, or simply out of a lack of trust. This contrast is striking. On one side, digital platforms working like dating apps for businesses. On the other, owners who still record sales in notebooks and rely solely on handshake agreements. How can these two worlds be reconciled? Japan now stands at the crossroads of technological innovation and traditions that refuse to fade. But how much can these efforts really hold back the tide? To understand the next step, we must look at a uniquely Japanese practice, an ancient tradition that may seem unlikely, but has already saved thousands of businesses from extinction. The surprising tradition of adult adoption. What if the salvation of thousands of companies did not come from technology or public policy, but from a tradition almost unknown outside Japan? This is mukoyoshi, the practice of legally adopting adult men to carry on the family name and inherit the business. Unlike child adoption, the goal here is strictly business and cultural, to ensure continuity of the brand, the reputation, and the legacy. This is not a marginal practice, but part of the country's corporate history. According to the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare, in 2011, there were about 81,000 adoptions in Japan, and an astonishing 98% of them were adult men between 20 and 30 years old, prepared to take over family businesses. Major names like Suzuki and Kikkoman relied on this tradition to secure the survival of their brands. Perhaps the most striking case is Nishiyama Onsen Keiunkan, a traditional inn in Yamanashi Prefecture. Founded in the year 705, it is recognized by Guinness World Records as the oldest company in the world still in operation. Its longevity was possible because, over the centuries, the family repeatedly turned to mukoyoshi to ensure suitable successors. The logic here is simple. Better to adopt someone trustworthy than risk the business disappearing. But this solution also comes with conflicts. In some cases, biological children who initially refused to inherit later attempted to reclaim their rights, leading to bitter legal disputes. Records from the Kyoto courts reveal family battles in which honor, assets, and legitimacy clashed for years. Moreover, for many business owners in smaller towns, adopting an outsider is still seen as a threat to the purity of tradition. Even so, given the scale of the crisis, mukoyoshi regained strength after World War II and remains today a culturally accepted alternative. It proves that Japan can adapt ancient traditions to modern demands. But can this practice alone be enough to save hundreds of thousands of threatened businesses? The answer may lie in something even more unsettling. Because if Japan fails to preserve its business fabric, the impact will not be just internal. It could reshape the entire economic and cultural future of the nation. The future at risk. If nothing changes, Japan may face one of the greatest shocks in its recent history. Studies from the National Institute of Population and Social Security Research indicate that by the year 2040, more than 40% of the country's rural towns could simply disappear. And it will not only be because of declining birth rates, but because local businesses, which sustain schools, jobs, and culture, will have vanished. We are talking about the backbone that represents 99.7% of Japanese companies and provides more than 70% of jobs, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The loss of this network of small and medium-sized enterprises would be the equivalent of cutting off the oxygen supply to the economy. The Bank of Japan already warns in its annual reports that prolonged stagnation, combined with mass business closures, could lead to a structural contraction of the nation's GDP. And there is an even deeper dimension: cultural loss. Every workshop that closes takes with it artisanal techniques. Every restaurant that shuts down erases culinary traditions. Every local shop that disappears wipes out a piece of collective memory. It is not only the economy that suffers, it is the identity of an entire country. Some argue that opening the door to foreign entrepreneurs could bring solutions. Foreigners passionate about Japanese culture have already shown interest in revitalizing local businesses. Yet cultural resistance remains strong. Many owners, accustomed to paper ledgers and handshake deals, refuse to trust outsiders. This is not just a generational clash, it is also technological and emotional. If Japan cannot find a way forward, the world will have before it a living example of what happens when a society fails to solve the problem of business succession. But if it succeeds in balancing tradition with innovation, it may turn this crisis into a model for other nations also grappling with aging populations. This debate does not end here. Japan's future is at stake, and the warning signs are already clear. If you believe topics like this must be discussed, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and above all, stay curious.